All right, everyone. Um, this is CSbois podcast number 4. Um, we have
Finally.
yes. I'm sorry that I went on a hiatus for a little bit. But my name is Edward. I'm a software engineer in Silicon Valley, doing infrastructure. What about you, Juan?
Hello. My name is Joan. I'm originally from the Bay Area. Or by the way, this is for like new viewers. Um and I was a data engineer since yesterday, but now I have a new position.
You will
Should
be
I
starting
Yeah,
soon,
I will
soon.
be starting soon, yeah. So yeah. Should I mention what I'm doing with my life?
Save it for later. All right, save it for later.
Okay, sure.
Do you have
All right.
you said you have a project you're working on? You want to talk about it?
Oh yeah. Um Right. So at the time of this recording, there's a new video out right now, which is basically what happened yesterday, which was I quit my job in a friendly way, of course, not in the I quit my job kind of way. And yeah, it's just your traditional day in the life video. So give it a watch if you're interested.
All right, let's jump into topic today. Today's topic is the interview process,
Uh,
right? But before even we'll start even before the interview, which is how to get an interview, because I struggle with that a lot, right?
yeah. hmm
S-
when did you start applying to jobs?
Way like month before graduations.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think me too. Like a few months before I even graduated, I started applying to jobs
Yeah.
because I think the norm or the expectancy is that you're supposed to have a job right out of school.
Or you need to start, paying your bills and whatnot, right? And for
Oh
those of
yeah,
you
that's
that have parents that you can fall back to, that's great, right? I didn't have parents to fall back to, so I needs to pay my thing, shit and everything, right?
right. Yeah.
So let's go straight into it, right? What the most when you talk about finding jobs, right? The most common way is probably, go on to like websites like Indeed or LinkedIn, right? Where you just go apply for jobs.
Yeah. I think the most common way I do is I just do Google Jobs. So I just type in whatever position at whatever city jobs right after it, and then Google will show you some results.
Right. And
If not LinkedIn or even sometimes like the company website.
yeah, so company website, there's different recruiting, sites. There's different like what you mean aggregation sites like Google and LinkedIn. Those are ways, right? I've gotten a lot of interviews from there, but there are actually other ways other than, just applying online.
Right.
Uh,
Because when you w- when you just apply online, what you're really doing is you're kind of playing a lottery in hopes that you get seen. While that might work for small companies because small companies they're typically or when they're always hiring and they're always on the lookout for new applicants. But when you apply to a company like Google or Facebook, maybe just sending an application might not be the best way because you're competing against maybe like literally millions.
yeah. So, oh, by the way, we're
Yeah.
trying to get resumes to review for the future podcast. So if you're interested to have resume looked at by us, and we'll obviously give you tips, criticize, right? I think that'll help a lot of people just to see what other people is making mistakes. I personally struggled a lot a few days ago. I was just looking through my stuff, my old stuff. I come across my resume, my old resume, that was like in the graduation phase resume, the resume that didn't get me any jobs, right? and I plan on going over that one and show you how horrible it is. So if you're interested in getting some help or some reviews, email to computerscienceboys@gmail.com. Boys is spelled BOIS,
Yeah.
and we'll put
We'll
a
probably have it in the description.
yeah we'll put a link down. But back to our topic, right? So online applications. The second thing I want to talk about is actually career fairs. Depending on a location, then you might not have it, right? You might not have them. Um, I have been to the school ones, the ones that is held at school, right? I didn't have that much success on
Hmm.
that particular one because, well, my experience is sort of like you're like competing with masters and PhDs.
Yeah, that is true.
And
Typically, job fairs, when they're being hosted in universities, it's typically open to all the students in the entire campus. Um, so I personally I have never had luck with career fairs. I have heard that people get interviews like literally at the career fair, but I think for instance, when I went to the career fair at UCSC, I lined up to talk to some recruiters at Facebook. I mean, at the time, I didn't know that they were just HR people. But what ended up happening for me is that they basically just have a little conversation with you, and then straight away they kind of just refer you to online application or maybe like drop your resume. Um, yeah, for me, it wasn't that helpful. What was your experience?
so I was talking about the one at school wasn't that helpful, though you might get an interview. If you can get an
Yeah.
interview out of it, great. I have seen, companies that literally just, you have a master's degree? Okay, come over here, we'll give you an interview. Oh, you
Mm.
have bachelor degree? Okay, apply online. I'm not, no joke. Obviously, it didn't came out like that, but
Yeah.
that's
An
how it is.
interesting an interesting pattern that I've seen with career fairs is that um the the less stressed you are, the more you get interviewed. That's like a strange pattern I've seen. I think my hypothesis is that like I've seen people come to career fairs in pajamas, and what I think is that I think people are so confident in their ability to like get a job that they can just come in with a pajama or like a pair of pajamas and they're just you know
Those people are probably there for the free stuff, man. I don't think they're actually looking for jobs.
yeah, I don't know.
There's a lot of free
I've
stuff.
seen I've seen some pajama wearers have pretty long conversations with like
I
recruiters and
mean, what are
stuff.
they gonna do, right? They're not gonna push you off just because you're wearing pajamas, right? They're professional. They're being professionals.
Yeah.
I think you should at least have like some sort of shirt, right? Polo shirts or some like little things like this, right? Even though you're,
Mm.
especially for engineers, where it's really not that it doesn't matter that much
Yeah.
to have very formal clothing.
Mm.
Uh, but I actually have success with career fairs. This job I'm at right now is at I found it at career fairs.
Mm.
So it was
But
a
was it through school? It wasn't through
it
school,
was
was it?
a UC alumni career fair.
I see.
I'm just gonna say that much, right? Yeah. So again, that's a chance. That is a way to get exposure, right? That is a way to expose yourself to more jobs.
Mhm.
So definitely go look at that.
Yeah. I think in general in the Bay Area there's a lot of career fairs that happen. I mean, obviously not today or not around this time because of the pandemic.
So on
Moving on.
applications, career fair. Third thing is you gotta have a LinkedIn profiles.
Yeah.
It's not that you're applying jobs on LinkedIn. It is that it is for people to reach out to you.
Yeah.
Now, depending on what you have on there, right, you might not get contacted. I, for
Right.
instance, didn't have a lot. I get some, and a lot of them is probably just spam mail. But you know what? if you can get an interview out of it, that's already worth, right?
Yeah.
And there's a whole, science behind how your LinkedIn profiles should look like. We can talk about that, later, maybe in the resume video as well. But yeah, I do believe I got interviews out of recruiters that contacted me through LinkedIn. So
Hmm.
definitely look into that one. And there's like a
Yeah.
little toggle where you can say whether you're actively looking for jobs or whether you're not actively looking for jobs. So make sure you find that little toggle in the LinkedIn, to
Yeah.
the ones that you know you're actively looking for jobs, and then people will start, not spamming. I don't want to use the word spamming, but like they will start reaching out to you,
Yeah.
through the messaging system or whatnot.
Also, that toggle is only it's only visible to recruiters. So, even if you have a job, you can still say you're looking for jobs, and only recruiters will be able to see it.
And also, I believe LinkedIn Premium is free for 1 month. I
Yes, it is.
definitely like the premium, though I didn't pay. Well, I think I paid for
Yeah.
like a month or something.
Yeah.
Just,
Accidentally for me.
I mean, just to see, what kind of stuff and what kind of skills, how many people apply to these kind of things.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting fact. Might not be as useful as I'd like to, but definitely interesting facts.
But I think with LinkedIn Premium, it's interesting to see who's looking at your profile, which is, to me, it's like, it's a nice thing to look at. But also, the thing with reaching out to recruiters on LinkedIn, that's probably one of the better ways to get interviews at a large company.
Yeah, that was my
Uh,
fourth point, right? Is cold
yeah,
mailing or just starting to talk to people, finding people, asking people stuff.
exactly.
On an
Yeah,
extreme level, you're basically knocking on people's door.
yeah. I think
And
some recruiters also probably put their emails in their LinkedIn, like contact, like ways to contact them. So that could be another good way to send in a resume directly.
also, you can sometimes ask for referral. Let's say if you found a job that you're really, right, different company have different systems. But
Hmm.
I believe if you get it, for some company, if you get a referral, you rank higher, right, in the
Yeah,
not hierarchy, in the list of candidates that they're looking through.
yeah. It probably, well, all it does is it just probably lets you skip that sort of lottery phase, and you get to go straight to the interview.
Yes.
I think a common thing that people wonder about is like, oh, does getting a referral better my chances of getting the job? It doesn't. All it does is it kind of just gets you the interview, and that's it.
Well, that still is better, right? I think having a referral is better than not having a referral, period.
Yeah, that's true. And
So,
also, yeah, this method does work, especially like if you're trying to get into a company and you want to be referred by maybe another engineer, because that's definitely something I've done before. Like I just like message kind of random engineers or recruiters from like companies that I want to work at, and like most of the time they will help you out and like put a referral in for you, because I think most companies, they reward whoever does a referral with like some sort of cash award. So, you know, don't think that, oh,
exactly.
they're not gonna want to help me out.
Exactly.
Mostly the cases, yeah,
They
they will.
have incentive, right? If you get hired, they get money.
Yeah,
It's actually crazy. I didn't know that before. So
yeah.
definitely take
I think
advantage of that.
yeah, at my last company, or it feels weird calling my company my last company. Um, if you refer an engineer, you could get $5,000 as an award. if you refer a non R&D or non engineering position, you get a $2,500 award. So
That's weird how engineer, if it is an engineer, it is more.
yeah, I think it's because it's harder to get engineers because high demand, less supply. That's the best I can guess.
Alright, moving on. The last one that we want to talk about is connections, right? Your parents, your relatives, right? They let them know, right? You're out of college, looking for, something, something. My last job is actually through a connections, and it wasn't even my relatives. It was, it was my tutor.
Mm.
So, yes.
Yeah. But
So,
also, yeah, connections. I haven't had much experience with it, but I think they could have as much impact as like a referral from a random person on LinkedIn, I think. Because, the best that someone can do in your connection is like they can only get you a referral. They can't really like hire you right away. But if you're friends with like a hiring manager, you know,
exactly. Let's say if your
give it a shot.
relatives is an engineering manager, you know?
Or like the CEO of Google or something.
All right, so that pretty much sums up the discovery phase, is what I like to call it. How do you expose yourself? How do people actually know that you exist, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now the real deal, the business, the interviews.
Yeah.
What
This
happened?
is this is the bulk of getting a job, the interview, obviously. But I think for us, I don't know if this is different for any other people, but like I want to say that the technical part is the one that I mostly fear when I go into an interview.
Let's start with let's start with an order, right?
Yeah.
Let's say they saw your resume, they found your, good fit, good candidate, they proceed, right? What is the first thing that usually they'll do? Or not
Hmm.
even that, right? Even before that, right? Even before that, even before they looked at a resume, they probably send out like coding challenge. Some of them,
Yeah.
I, I didn't,
Hmm.
I didn't see a lot of them, but some of them will send you coding challenge. No one is gonna monitor that. Just weeder, right?
Yeah. It's
And
basically like a filter, like can you code? And if you can code, can you, find the most optimal solution? Basically, have you studied leak code? That's
or,
that's
or
pretty
you,
much where it's going
or
down to.
basically, do you know how to program, right? Pretty much.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't see that a lot, but I
Yeah.
believe they're super common, especially in internships.
Hmm.
So,
So yeah, if you're a student and you've been applying to jobs or internships lately, you've probably most likely received a coding challenge. Um, and if you haven't, here's what to expect. Um, you should expect that a coding challenge should be, I don't know, I want to say like half an hour to an hour, and
I have seen
it's
longer. I've seen
usually,
longer.
yeah,
I've seen like
there has
four
been longer.
questions kind of coding challenge.
Yeah, I think I received one from Palantir. Their coding challenge was like 5 questions, and you have like 2 hours to do them or something like that.
A long, long
It
time
was,
ago, I have the Twitter one, and it was like four questions, and then each one you can go up to 1 hour, so 4 hours total.
oh yeah, I got one from Twitter too, I think. Yeah. I think the big names like Google and Amazon, I think most often they always do coding
Yep,
challenges.
yep, yep, yep.
Yeah. What would you say? Is it if you don't finish all the questions, you're basically out? Is that always the case, do you think?
Uh, I like to think that, because if they are at
Yeah.
a scale where they can just push out coding challenge, they are expecting people to complete it.
Yeah.
And if you're not able to complete it, that probably means there's no, how do I put it? There are probably other people that will be able to complete it, and it is a very simple weeder for them,
Yeah.
right? Complete the four questions, move on to the next one. Didn't complete it, you're out.
Yeah. I think a very safe bet is like if you can't find the most optimal solution, at least just try to get it done.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Even like brute force algorithm, go for it. Just like completing
Exactly,
completing all the problems is more important than
exactly,
solving a few optimally.
exactly. But keep in mind, they might actually go back and ask you why you do things this way,
Yeah, that's true.
assuming you got past next phase.
Yeah, I've definitely had interviews where a coding challenge or like a coding assignment was brought up in the final interview, which is like an on-site typically.
All right. So after coding challenge, what happens next?
I think typically uh, you would hear back about your results from HR. Um, what to expect from HR? Maybe like 15 to 30 minutes of a conversation. I think part of this is also testing like your, conversational skills. Um, they also go over like job expectations on, um, you know, what is the role, where you're going to be. I think also like administrative stuff, like um, some companies they want to, you know, figure out ahead of time if you need like say sponsorship to stay in the US because some companies they just don't do that and they
Yep.
don't want to waste your time.
Yep. Some companies they need clearance, right? Security clearance. Some of them needs like citizenships, and they'll usually figure those kind of details out during the HR phase. Again, it's a
Yeah.
simple thing that they can just say yes or no, right? So they'll do it early on.
Yeah.
Um,
I think yeah, this is probably the easiest part of a technical or of
I
like the
mean,
interview
no, I
process.
mean, again, I have seen like technical HR rounds as well, right? Where it is simple yes no technical questions like for me, right, it was build and release position. So it was something like, oh, what do you usually see on the first line of a Docker file, right? It was like the from phase, right? From what images, right? From is
Hmm.
the answer.
Yeah.
What program do you use to debug Python code, right? What is the first line of a bash files, right? Is the hash
Hmm.
bang something something.
Yeah.
I
I
have
think
seen that.
one
Not very common.
one yeah, one example I've gotten is like an HR um an HR reached out to me before like a technical phone. I think he was asking me some sort of Java object oriented question. Um, yeah, I think it was like the difference between equals equals and like the dot equals function in Java, which I saw in Glassdoor, so I prepared for it and like it actually came. So I think what happens with HR uh, interviews when they like ask you technical questions is that they sort of have like a template where like, oh, you know, they should at least be able to answer this like technical question before moving on.
Yep. Yep. Usually pretty easy, but
Mhm.
make sure your phone is always on because usually they reach out on phone and
Yeah,
you don't really know when they're gonna call you.
yeah. A red flag for me is like if a recruiter calls me unannounced, I'm like, I don't want to work for you. That's typically my rule because it's like, dude, I can't,
I don't know,
I've,
man.
I've, dude, I've had one call me on a weekend. I was so mad. It's like, don't call me on the weekend.
Sure. I'm definitely not that guy. I'm definitely the guy that, yeah, sure, call me. Yeah, fucking 2 a.m. Yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah,
So again, it's usually another kind of, they don't again they don't want to put as much resource they want to put resource as late as possible. So the next round is usually a phone interview or Zoom interview,
Mm-hmm.
and it's usually technical and usually done by people in that team.
Yeah. Or just like another engineer.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think with this type of technical phone interview, or I want to say like quote unquote phone, because uh, it might come in two different forms, where it's like it's literally, they call you on your phone, or they call you with like a quote unquote Zoom method, which is either like I think a common platform is CoderPad, which is they can call you with voice and video, and there's also like a coding terminal, like an IDE and a console that you can test your code on. And yeah, it's basically like a online whiteboarding question, like a format. Yeah, so I think when you get these types of interviews, what typically happens first is, you know, the engineer or whatever will call you, introduces himself or herself, and then, you know, probably ask you to introduce yourself as well. You can maybe expect 1 to 2 hours. I think I interviewed at Airbnb, their technical round before. It was 2 hours and two questions. Others are one really long question that you can probably spend like an hour to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours on.
And they
Um,
usually
yeah.
have you leave a little bit of time at the end so that you can go over and talk about your answers, right? Instead of just, oh, I'm done. And actually,
Yeah.
another thing is, it usually does not require. Does it require you to like? Does it usually have an answer where, like a lead code, where you can just like test your code?
Yeah. Sometimes an interviewer will give you sort of like a skeleton code. So they basically like, all right, here's what you need to do. Like for me, one time I interviewed at a company. What they did was they sort of gave me a class and like a driver code to run it. All I have to do is like implement some sort of graph function, like finding the most optimal path or something. You just have to fill it out and then just run it. Yeah.
So it lets you run. It lets you run it.
It's just a simple like just a simple IDE. Like I mean, not it's not even anything close to like VS Code or anything. It's just like, I don't know. I want to say like Notepad++ or Sublime, something in that similar simplicity. And then there's typically like a button that you can just press run, and it'll run the
I
code
I
from
I
like
I
top down.
I believe there are also ones that you actually don't even need to run. Like the platform itself does not allow you to run, or it's not like they basically just give you an
Yeah,
environment and then you just code out,
yeah,
right? It doesn't even necessarily needs to be syntactically correct. Obviously,
yeah,
you should make it syntactically correct so that it runs, but the
right.
environment itself does not allow you to run, so you just write your flow and then sort of explain.
Some big company that I interviewed at, I got to the technical round. What they did was they sent me two Google Docs to code on, and it's sort of like you can't test it because it's literally just pen and paper. Yeah, and then on CoderPad, even though you can run your code, I've gotten SQL questions before, and they sort of give you like they draw a table for you, and then yeah, you're just supposed to write SQL queries on it, and like you can't really run it, so it's up to the interviewer to kind of determine if you're right or not. So yeah, you don't have to be afraid of it not compiling or running.
Yep, exactly. So next, if
Yeah.
you did get past the technical, so this right, this sort of Zoom slash phone phase is really just there to see whether again you can actually code and you're not
Hmm.
plagiarizing, because a coding
Yeah.
challenge you could plagiarize.
Yeah.
Um,
But also remember that a technical phone, it's not always coding. It's not always coding. What is it? Specific or coding constraint. They also ask you other technical things like
Like concepts,
object-oriented
right?
programming.
Yeah,
Yeah,
concepts. Like why, how come binary search is log of n?
yeah. Oh,
What
also
is
like
binary search, right?
yeah, always be prepared to answer like space and time complexity. And then another thing is like, I don't know, given a problem, what's like the best data structure to implement this with? Um, yeah, also like algorithm questions. An interview I've gotten is uh, one on Fibonacci sequence, or like calculate the next Fibonacci number or the nth Fibonacci number. Obviously, the best way to do it is through dynamic programming. Uh, yeah, I kind of blanked out on that one because I haven't reviewed in a while. I think that was around the time where we just learned dynamic programming, so it was still fresh in my head. But fresh as in not that good.
Okay, so the next round, let's say you got past phone and Zoom interview,
Mm-hmm.
you you're on the last like path, straight path. You're on the money now.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
the final,
You
usually.
are you are now at the boss fight,
The
basically.
boss fight.
Yeah.
And that is the
If you
on-site.
if you fail this, you got to start all over again at your next company. All right. So this is the most nerve-wracking for me. I typically I try to sleep very well before this interview.
And some of the on-site, some company actually fly you over to their site. Let's say
Yeah.
it is Seattle, right? They fly you from the Bay to the Seattle just
Yeah.
to be there for 3 to 6 hours to meet the people and to
Yeah.
quiz you on things.
Yeah. Companies with a lot of money, they will, expect a free trip. And I think with those you can also request to extend your stay because I'm sure they'll be willing to, I mean, extend your stay at your own discretion, of course. Um, they will book a ticket for you, and a hotel room, according to the number of days that is required for you to be there. I think if you want to stay longer, then you might have to pay yourself, but at least you have that, free ticket home.
And then they
Uh,
expense your lunch and transportation as well.
yeah, I've never had
Lunch and
that,
dinner.
unfortunately. Yeah, I did always want to have that experience. Sounds nice.
Alright, alright, alright. On site. Okay, they'll usually send you an email instructions, right? Or they'll tell you, when and where to come by if that time works for you. You show up.
Yeah.
You show up at the front desk. You said, I'm here to interview, and you wait for whoever come out and greet you. I have HR that come out and greet me. I have also have manager comes out and greet me. Depends on the scale of the company, right?
Yeah, and you'll always know who you're going to be talking with because typically the day before your on-site interview, you will get an email that is sort
Some
of like
do,
an agenda.
some do, some don't.
Some Okay. I think yeah, most of the time I've gotten one. Um, yeah, but basically it's just a list of who you will be talking to in order, instructions to get to the office, where to park. If you're in the Bay, there's parking. If you're in other cities, I don't know. But they will always, or if they provide you with instructions or like an agenda, they will always, give you instructions on how to get there. Yeah, how long it is, people you'll be talking to. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, so you got there, right? Let's say, suppose, right? Usually the first round is HR because usually the first person that greet you is the HR lady. So
Hmm.
you probably will have like half an hour to an hour with the HR lady. Um, what do they usually talk about? Oh, okay. Oh, actually, before that, right? The HR lady will come greet you. They'll usually show you around the office, right?
Hmm.
Like oh, who is working where, right? What team is
Yeah.
this? Bring you to the snack room, bring you to the entertainment kind of area, show,
Bathroom.
yeah, show you around bathroom, conference room, whatever. And
Yeah.
usually
And then
that's the time.
ultimately, yeah, your final destination will be like a meeting room that you'll be basically in all day.
And usually that's the time you'll get some snacks, or they ask you, "Oh, do you want some snacks?"
Yeah. In that case, it's never a bad it's never a bad thing to like decline. You won't appear to seem like a rude person if you like say, oh no, or if you say like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I wanna you know eat your
A
free stuff.
pro tips: try not to get soda. You don't want to be burping during the interview, right? Pro tip.
Yeah. Drink your water moderately. Don't like don't pee every 15 minutes.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah,
I
I
should
always
I
go
should
for
I
like,
shouldn't need to teach you that, but I had definitely
yeah.
made the mistakes of drinking soda and just trying not to burp during interviews.
Yeah. Were you the one that told me like you needed to like go number two during an interview or something? Was that you, or was that someone else?
Ah,
By the looks on your face, it's someone else.
I definitely look, man. I have weak stomach. I have bad stomach. Okay, I remember this one time I have to go to SF, the city, for an interview, and in the city you can hardly find a bathroom,
Yeah.
and I really had to go, so I was late to the interview, which already looked bad because of my stomach. Anyway, it was it was terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did get the job though.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like going to the airport.
It's
You
like
know,
going to an exam.
plan. Yeah. Plan for you know, any shit that happens in life, as they always do. All right.
Moving on.
Um,
So HR greet
yeah.
you, and now it could either be, um, engineering manager or some engineers in the team.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't have to be like your team specifically. It could be managers. It could be managers, other team, right? That interview
Hmm.
you,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Or
it's
it could be some.
usually not a junior that will interview you. Usually.
Yeah. But I think yeah, sometimes you do get a junior interview. But I think that's more for interns typically. I know I'm a junior or at my old company, and I interviewed a few interns. So that's my perspective. And
Yeah. So what happened when an engineer interview you?
uh, that's the that's the tough part. Yeah. So typically, they always start off with like, oh, do you need to go to the bathroom? Blah blah blah. I recommend if you don't really need to go, don't go. Just save yourself as much time as possible because you do have an agenda. They won't wait for you just because you went to the bathroom for like 15 minutes doing God knows. Um, yeah, and then they typically, again, like sometimes they're the ones that did a technical phone with you. Sometimes they're just like someone completely new. They'll, of course, do a reintroduction, and then they'll ask you to speak a little bit about yourself. I think with on-site technicals, or actually like every on-site has multiple rounds, and in each round you're basically going to again and again repeat what you're going to say about yourself. So get used to saying that, and then typically after that you get straight into the technical questions,
Yep, yep, yep.
which
And
is
and that
whiteboarding.
is basically part of your behavioral, right? You introducing yourself, and we're gonna talk about behavioral in the next podcast. So definitely stay
Yeah.
tuned for that. But in
Mhm.
terms of technical questions, right? Let's give some example of technical questions. that we've
Yeah.
seen?
Uh, yeah. So when I was job hunting, I was looking for data engineering positions and software engineer. Uh, I've mentioned why in like the previous podcast. So if you wanna know why, go give the old ones a listen. But for the data engineering interviews that I've uh, been through, here's like a few questions, like an example that maybe will be applicable to yours if you are again applying for a data engineering position. Um, One example was I interviewed at I forgot what they did, but um, a question that I basically really struggled on was I was given a huge file to sort. This was just like whiteboard, so it's just like all, you kind of pretend you get a really big file and you have limited RAM. Your task was sort that file without reading the entire thing into memory. And basically the way to do that is you sort it in chunks and then, you sort it into bigger and bigger chunks until you get a sorted list. I think this method is called outer merge sort. To this day, I kind of still don't really get it. I mean, it's conceptually it sounds easy, right? It's like similar to merge sort, but yeah, it's a little bit more nuanced. Um, Another question was I had to implement an LRU cache.
But before you go into the other questions, my answer
Yeah,
to that would be if you're on Linux, just use more swap spaces. I have
yeah,
because I have a similar questions, and I was just telling them, oh yeah, just
yeah,
increase the swap spaces. Why you gotta worry about that? But
yeah,
obviously that's not very efficient. But if it's just a one-time
yeah.
thing, do you really want to optimize your algorithm and then like do this, right? It depends on
Right.
situations.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But obviously, in that case, I had to you know do what I was told.
all I'm trying to say is, right, with these kind of questions, with these kind of technical questions, there might be a one true answer, but before
Mhm.
you reach that true answers, you could give like some suboptimal one first, and then they might start
Mm,
leading you on to what if this, what if that. What if I
yeah.
don't want it to be running in an ON time instead of a ON
Mhm.
time? I wanted it to run a log of N time, right? And then you start,
Yeah.
okay, well, if you blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
That
that's
that
actually that's actually a really good point that you brought up. Is because interviewers like to see that you kind of ask about restrictions, limitations, and like other details that'll. It's basically a way for interviewers to determine that this is how you think. You think proactively. Yeah, basically.
Your second question is, what have you seen?
Oh, yeah. Again, data engineering. I saw like implement LRU cache, basically with a linked list, and you also had to implement a O of one lookup time, uh, like function. And then I also got a lot of database design questions, which for me I kind of struggled with because I think these days most schools, or at least our school, didn't require a database course.
I know nothing about databases.
Yeah,
Nothing.
yeah.
I'm lucky I
I
know how
think
to use database. Okay.
yeah, like I was having a conversation with my old boss one time, and he was like he asked me, like, "Hey, John, do you learn databases in school? Because like I heard from the other juniors, like they've started using SQL like in their internship. They never learned it in school." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, like these days I don't think it's a requirement anymore." And he was like, "Oh well, I feel like an ass because I've been like asking database design questions, SQL questions." And he was just like, "Oh man, it feels like we're asking unfair questions, but at the same time, it's like it's essential." So yeah, definitely study it on your own if you can.
If you're going into the data engineer field, I would say probably less for SWE, right? Software
Yeah,
engineer, depending on a job description, obviously.
I mean, yeah, I think it's also just important to have SQL skills because no matter where you go, you're gonna need SQL probably because every company out there works with data, so you're gonna need to have some sort of query language
Yeah,
down.
definitely you need to know what SQL is. You need to know what
Yeah,
does it mean by run a query, right? If you
yeah,
don't even know
at,
that.
yeah. At least know what it stands for. Okay.
Okay,
Software. Or you want to go?
I'm gonna go into mine a little bit, right? Mine is like the
Yeah.
infra DevOps kind of field where you would see some architectural questions like how do you make a website, fault tolerant? How do you make it highly available? Um,
Hmm.
Basically why AWS exists pretty much, right? Why
Yeah.
why is there EC2 kind of thing?
Yeah.
And then some
I feel like
Linux troubleshooting questions, right? Basic Linux, LSCD, right? And then,
should we move
but
on?
yeah, with your normal regular software engineer kind of thing, right? They will just ask you algorithmic questions. So we have some example we're gonna go over.
Hmm.
First one
Yeah.
is a
So.
binary tree, right? That's a concept that you should probably
Hmm.
know that you learned in class.
Yeah.
Right.
And typically, like when you get a binary tree problem, um, you want to solve it with recursion. I think when I do leak code and when I do interviews, when I get a binary tree problem, I always resort to recursion, and I think that's what the solution mostly most of the time is recursion.
Yeah, and then
Um,
once you come up with the answers, right, you given a time space complexity, and then the interviewer is gonna ask you a little bit more about that, and then it's gonna move
yeah,
on.
yeah. I've actually been asked about binary search and merge sort in like a data engineering interview. So I think no matter where you are, or no matter what position you're applying to, just like know those stupid introductory data structures and algorithms courses inside out. Like know them so well that you can write it in your sleep, basically. Like I think one of the exercises I did was I wrote merge sort and binary search like every single day, and just like on a whiteboard to not forget. I memorized it so well I could just do it in like 30 seconds. Um, and then it's also good to implement data structures from scratch on your own. So you kind of like understand the inner workings of it, and you understand like the time complexity of like built-in data structures, like uh, methods.
I just
Um,
want to bring up something real quick. That's what kind of sucks about schools is you learn all these fundamentals
mhm.
early in your school, in your academic,
Yeah,
but then you actually have to go back
yeah,
to revisit those concepts instead
yeah.
of we are learning these concepts later and then we can just use it.
And those AI and machine learning electives that you took, like later on in your college career, you're probably not good enough to get an interview for those positions, unless you're a really special kid. But for me, like I took a bunch of AI, NLP, machine learning electives, and like I could
Those
not
are on a separate
qualify.
level. Those are not on the SWE
Yeah,
level. Those are like on a different level.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
let's go to second questions. And I put a little story on this one or put a little cover on this one so it's not as obvious, but basically and they like to do that, right? They're not just gonna tell you, okay, given a binary tree X Y Z, right? For example, this one, given a list of people's height that are sorted, right? That are in order. Find a find a person that is closest to X height, right?
Hmm.
And what they're looking for is, how do you do it, right? Obviously, it very simple is write a for loop, find a person that's closest to the number,
Hmm.
return that, right? But that's suboptimal because it's sorted. And so what they're really looking for, what they're fishing for is binary search. Do you know binary
Yeah.
search?
And I think with these types of questions, like really, really listen and really pay attention to all the keywords that they say.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
when you
it's
hear things
sorted.
like sorted, associate it with like, I don't know, some sort of binary search or any like searching algorithm. Uh, because, ask yourself this: does it make a difference whether or not it's sorted? If so, like, there's a reason why things are the way they are, and it's sort of like hints to giving you tips. But yeah, uh, things like the word path, graph traversal. Uh, yeah,
Okay,
pro tip.
one more. Third one is a two-sum questions.
Yeah, I get this question a lot actually, like more than you would think.
This is a very good question. If you're on LeetCode, you probably already seen this question. But what is this? What is a two-sum question? You want to explain?
Yeah, to some basically, you get an array of integers. Uh, it's not sorted, and you're given an array and a target number, basically. And just like the problem's name implies, find the two numbers that'll sum to that target number. So this type of question is fishing for a hash set or a hash table, or in Python you would know it as a dictionary. Uh, yeah, I'll let you figure out how to do that one. It's an
I'll
easy level problem.
I'll tell you, I didn't quite know how to use dictionary until like the end of my senior year. That's how bad I was.
Yeah.
The day I saw two sums, I was like, wait, you can do it this way? Holy crap! Whoa, that's what I've been learning about. Is it this dictionary, this hash thing? That's how you
Yeah.
actually apply it. I was mind blown.
Yeah.
But
Also, like, I think it's really important to understand how, hashing works. I've gotten question on hashing before, and I was like, I couldn't answer very well. So yeah, always know why data structures work is my tip.
why they exist, right? What problems those data structure exists is trying to solve.
Yeah.
All right, next, sliding windows. What's a sliding window questions?
Yeah, sliding window, a very common one. Uh, to me, it's pretty hard to write, and conceptually, it's hard to understand also. Um, so what is it? It's going to be a question in the format of finding something something longest subsequence or substring. When you hear those like two words, it's typically a sliding window problem. And you can imagine a sliding window problem to be something like, um, again, you're given a list of something, maybe like a string, and like you're trying to find this. Say this string is like just a random array of A, B's, and C's in no particular order, and say the problem is asking you, oh, find the longest substring inside it that has no repeated characters. So you can only have like A, B, C, D, E, or I guess earlier I said just A, B, and C's. But say it's like A through Z, you know? So where that sliding window picture comes in is the way it's revealing how to solve it is that you have two pointers. So basically like the left and right of like a window, literally like,
Your start and
imagine,
end, right?
yeah, your start and end, and inside it is like your window. And basically how to approach it is you're going to be stretching the right pointer and then shrinking it by adjusting, say like if you say like the right pointer ventures into the array, and if it finds a repeated character, you shrink your window to find, to continuously find the most optimal window, or just like the maximum size window. um yeah,
Yeah,
so
and it's usually there. We need to have this like sliding windows because it's optimal, right?
mhm.
With original question, if we don't use this technique, it might be like n square time or n cube time. With this
Yeah,
sliding window, you really just only the big O is really 2n, which is n,
Yeah.
right? You only need
And
to look at the whole thing twice.
Yeah. Interestingly, the way to solve this problem is, again, it's like a linear time solution. But what always got me is like the easiest way to comprehend how to do this is to write nested while loops. And you would think, oh, nested loops means it's n squared at least, right? It's not, because the bottleneck of this while loop is your right pointer. So at most, you're going to traverse this array or like this string. At most, it's constrained by n, which is the length of your array.
I feel like we're not doing a good job explaining this question, so you
Yeah,
guys definitely should look it up by
yeah.
yourself if you're
Sliding window.
interested.
Basically, stretchy
Basic,
pointers shrink and expand.
yeah, basically the two pointer it goes, stretching.
Yeah. It goes do do.
Exactly.
All right, boing boing. All right. What's next?
Detect if words have repeated characters. What is this?
Oh yeah. Okay, I wrote that one. Yeah. Obviously, we're reading from like a
We had to
like
do
a
prep
sheet.
work, guys.
Yeah, we actually prepared this time. We're not pulling random shit out of our ass. Okay. So this one is like, again, this is like a set or dictionary problem. Basically, you're given a string, determine if it has unique characters, or determine if there's any repeated characters or not, and you would return true or false. So say something like AABC, that's false because it has repeated A's. Something like ABCDEF, that would be true. Obviously, you would use a set or like a dictionary or like a count, right? You need to count the frequency of each letter or character.
Just a dictionary that is true false, right?
Yeah.
If something exists in the dictionary, then you return
Yeah.
false immediately.
Mm-hmm. An interesting way that I've seen this solved is by using an array of size 26. So, I mean, that also requires the question to obey the rule that it's all like, A through Z, lowercase or strictly uppercase. Yeah, and then you just basically have a counter and like it's just like a array of 26 filled with zeros, and if those values go over 1, then it's wrong. But yeah.
This is a pretty easy one, I feel like.
Yeah. It's an easy level question on LeetCode.
Yeah.
This is also from LeetCode. Yeah.
All right, regex. What's regex?
Regex, regular expression.
You should probably you probably already learned that in class, but you should learn more if you didn't quite use it.
Yeah. Basically, regex is like, it's an expression that matches. It's used for like string pattern matching. Basically, you can do whatever you want with it. Yeah.
And then the last one I actually have this, and I didn't know the answer because I've never used it. It is a Python yield questions. You wanna sort of explain what this question is?
Oh yeah. So yield. I think yield is a pretty rare use case. I've never used it often, but I have used it at work.
Yeah,
And it's
pretty
useful.
I got asked, and I don't even know it existed.
Yeah. I deemed myself to be pretty good at Python when I was job hunting, but I also have never used yield before. Yeah, so basically, imagine you have a file. It has strings on each line, and say there's 100 lines of it. Say that you have an API, and that API takes parameters, and it takes 5 strings at a time, or basically you want to return 5 strings at a time from that file of 100 lines that I mentioned before. Figure out a way to return 5 at a time. Obviously, you think like, oh, I just do a for loop or a while loop. Every time I hit 5, I return it. But then the problem comes up that what if the file is too big to read in all at once? You want to be efficient with it, right? So yield basically, you could have a file pointer, and then every time you hit a count of 5, you return it, and then have that return value be used in another function to do, I don't know, your API call. And then it would continuously do that until, it stops.
I didn't quite understand that, but my understanding is basically you have a function and you wanted the return value to be different each time you call that function. How do you do that? You don't use a return, right? Because you keep saying return 1, it'll just return 1. You use yield. So the first time you call that function, it'll return the first yield. The second time you call that, it'll return the second yield.
Yeah. You can think of it as like chunking, right? You're processing things in chunks. So in this case, 5 at a time until you get to 100.
Okay, well, that sums up the technical part of it.
Yeah. I think that's all that I've gone through, pretty much.
Yeah, and obviously you also get engineering manager interview, which are usually mostly behavioral, and looking at your resume and tell me about a project, those kind of things.
Yeah, actually, I think those are one of the most fun rounds because you really get to know like the teams that you might be working in. If not, just like they usually have something interesting to say, and they're very conversational in my experience. So
let's talk about that next time on CSbois.
Episode
5. Yes.
This is 4? Yeah.
This is 4. Next one is 5. I think
Okay.
we're good on time. So with that, guys, thanks so much for watching. Remember, send us your resume to computerscienceboys@gmail.com.
Yeah.
I can't wait to show you what some of the resume I got and I wrote.
Yeah. We'll be showing some pretty ridiculous ones that we've had. I don't know if I've saved my old ones, but I can dig it up.
And thank you guys so much for watching.
Again, check out the day in the life video.
Yes,
it might be a little cliched, a little overdone, but I like it. I like the one that I made. It's nice.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. All right, stay safe out there.
Wave. Why don't you wave? Wave. Goodbye.
I'll do princess wave.
Bye.
It's my girlfriend. Princess wave.